Good morning. The text does not cover the M3, F80, and M4, F82, F83 models. However, it can be applied to the F31, station wagon, and to a large extent, to the F34, 3 Gran Turismo, F32, 4 Coupe, F33, 4 Cabriolet, and F36, 4 Gran Coupe, because all these versions are based on the same base as the F30 sedan. The body of the BMW F30 and its aforementioned derivatives can be assessed positively. There are no signs of rust or other such surprises. Users sometimes only complain about faulty front door seals, which results in too loud wind noise while driving, or creaking plastics in the interior. The latter issue can concern various elements: the center console, steering wheel, speaker grills. In addition, we also hear about problems with electronics. The faults usually affect the multimedia system control module. If we see the message "no signal" on the screen, it may be the module's fault. In addition, the electric boot lid opening/closing in estate cars occasionally fails, although this can probably also be applied to the less popular 3 Gran Turismo and 4 Gran Coupe. Xenon lighting used before the facelift causes various problems. Most often the comments concern problems with leveling the light beam and adjusting its range. LED headlights, used after the facelift, seem to be slightly more durable, although this impression may simply result from the fact that cars with LEDs are younger than those with xenon. The BMW 3 and 4 Series chassis is a surprisingly strong point of the car. It's hard to find any information about more serious, recurring faults, even if the reading concerns cars with sports, adaptive suspension. The inglorious exception in this category is the steering gear, which causes users trouble more than average. One of the problems encountered is the loss of several bolts. The steering gears were covered by a service campaign. Sometimes only the bolts were replaced, and sometimes the entire racks. It should be remembered that replacing the transmission with a new one involves the need to update the car's software, which may result in the removal of non-factory modifications, including those that increase engine power. It depends on what exactly the authorized service wants to update. Owners of these cars often share information that if a given vehicle actually has non-standard software installed, the authorized service center should be asked to, as the owners put it, remotely connect to Germany. This is to ensure correct coding of the new steering rack without the side effects mentioned above. It can be expected that this may also apply to other work on the BMW 3/4 Series. The petrol engines used in the BMW 3 Series F30 are quite complicated. There are few to recommend. Before the facelift, the range included the following versions: 316i, 320i, 328i, and 335i, of which only the last is a 6-cylinder. The engine used in the BMW 316i is the 1.6 THP unit, well known to services, developed together with the PSA concern. It is extremely economical, but this is not particularly comforting in the face of timing drive failure or carbon deposits on the intake valves. The effect of using direct injection. All petrol engines in the range have it. The 320i and 328i3s were equipped with 2-liter N20 engines. After initial enthusiasm and extremely positive reviews in the press, it turned out that the problems were the same as in the basic version, or even worse, because many copies had problems with engine lubrication. The culprit was a faulty oil pump. The top-of-the-range version of the 335i before the facelift N55 engine is considered one of the better options when it comes to petrol versions in this model. It is admittedly expensive to service and maintain, but it is not only more reliable than the weaker versions, but also very fast. With the N55 engine under the hood, the BMW 3 reaches 100 km per hour in 5.5 seconds. However, there are some problems here too. These include not very durable injectors or ignition coils, and of course, carbon deposits accumulating in the intake manifold. You also need to watch out for faulty fuel pumps, 320i, 328i, 335i, which in some cars could break down after driving a few hundred kilometers. In the United States, a service campaign was conducted in connection with this. The European market practically avoided this problem, and failures of the pump called HPFP are marginal. After the facelift, practically the entire engine range was replaced, with the introduction of the B-Series units, B38 in the 318i, B48 in the 320i and 330i, and B58 in the 340i. The B38 is an exceptional engine compared to other engines as it has only 3 cylinders and 1.5 L of capacity. On paper, the performance is practically identical to the older 316i version, but the driving experience is not particularly pleasant. If, despite everything, someone is looking for such a 3-cylinder BMW, they should buy a car as young as possible, because in the initial period of production of the B38 engine, there was a risk of axial play of the crankshaft, which basically means that the engine must be replaced. The problem was supposedly resolved in spring 2015. This is slightly different from the period of installation of this drive unit in the BMW F30 from May 2015, but it is better to buy a slightly younger car to be on the safe side than to be surprised later that this was supposed to be the improved one. In the case of the B48 2.0R4 and B58 3.0R6 engines, information about serious failures does not fly before our eyes at lightning speed, but there is information about problems with the cooling system, coolant disappearing from the system, and there are also known cases of B48 engines being replaced under warranty. The BMW Active Hybrid 3 and 330e Performance are interesting in the range. Both of these versions are hybrid, with the Active Hybrid 3 offered before the facelift, being a conventional hybrid, without the option of charging from a socket. These cars are equipped with a 3-liter N55 engine, and have a total of 340 HP. The 330e Performance, available only after the facelift, is a plug-in hybrid with a 4-cylinder B48 engine. The system power here is 252 HP. Both of these models are extremely rare, and it is difficult to say anything more about their typical faults. One can only suspect that they would not differ significantly from the problems of the pre-facelift 335y and post-facelift 330i models. If there are so many problems with petrol engines, then surely it is worth looking at diesels? Ha ha ha. Well, not really, unless we come to terms with their problems. The problem is that not everything can be reconciled, but we will get to the details in a moment. Here we are also dealing with N-series engines, 4-cylinder N47 and 6-cylinder N57, and B-series, only 4-cylinder B47. The main problem with N47 units is the unstable timing drive, which, to make matters worse, is located on the gearbox side. Note: the problem with the chain and worn tensioner is much less common in the F30 and occurs after higher mileage than in the previous generation E90, but it is better to keep it in mind. N57, only in 330D and 335D, also has timing drive from the gearbox side, but it is more durable than in the 4-cylinder model. Sometimes, 6-cylinder diesel 3s travel even about twice as far on one chain as BMW, with 4-cylinder N47. The N47 and N57 engines share other potential faults. There are cases of coolant disappearance, although they do not seem to be particularly common. All this does not stop many people from considering the N47 and N57 engines to be better than their petrol counterparts. They may be right, but the issues indicated above are actually nuances. A bigger problem concerns the N47 and N57 diesels offered in the BMW F30 and consists of the risk of a car fire caused by a faulty EGR valve cooler, which we wrote about recently. A service campaign is underway, but there are many cases where cars started to burn even after a visit to the service. It is best to be interested only in the youngest years in this case, because then we have a slightly greater chance of finding a model without similar problems. The above service campaign also applies to the newer B47 engine and, most likely, the B57, although information about this is harder to find in this case. It should be noted that more than one BMW owner with one of the engines listed has been turned away by authorized service centers if their VIN was not on the list of cars eligible for repair. The problem is that there have already been cases of denial of warranty repair to owners whose cars were already burnt. In both the BMW 3 and 4 series, the drive could be transmitted by a 6-speed manual transmission or an 8-speed ZF8 HP automatic. Problems with the former are rarely heard of, partly due to its low popularity. Only sporadically do reports of vibrations in the drive system appear. The ZF gearbox, which is often found in some cars, tends to jerk, especially when cold. Sometimes an oil change or readaptation helps, but sometimes you have to visit a service. Despite everything, it is a successful gearbox. The X-Drive all-wheel drive system is considered to be not particularly durable. It can fail even at mileage of 50–80,000 kilometers. The transfer case usually fails due to insufficient oil and the abrasion of the gears. In some cases, the flange responsible for transferring power to the rear axle can cause problems. The X-Drive system is quite sensitive to issues such as proper tire pressure and tread type and depth. It's best if the car has 4 identical tires, with the same degree of wear on each one. As always, it depends. The BMW 3 Series F30, F31, and its derivatives are surprisingly well developed in terms of body and chassis durability, apart from faulty steering gears, and the transmission rarely causes major problems, at least in the rear-wheel drive models. The engines are a disappointment. Most petrol engines are at risk of more or less troublesome failures, and diesels not only have their own faults, but also the timing drive is not very durable, especially in the 4-cylinder ones. A well-maintained BMW 3/4 series with a proven service history can be a tasty morsel, especially in versions such as the 335i or 340i. The engine in the latter variant is almost the same unit as used in the new Toyota Supra or the BMW Z4. However, if we did not need a 300 horsepower engine, it would be best to go for one of the basic diesels, the 318D or 320D with rear-wheel drive. The issue of the gearbox is secondary here. It is important that the car has undergone a service campaign for the EGR valve cooler. All this makes the BMW 3 Series F30, F31, and its derivatives quite an interesting proposition. And with such a car, you can scare other drivers who expect an unmarked police car. And if you know of any common errors, your comments are welcome.